an opportunity to have some discussions and feedback and that kind of stuff. So this joint meeting, we're having this because there's a lot of stuff coming down the pike for JDEP and YCEP, and we just thought it'd be a whole lot easier to have everyone together and get the message out one time. So you want to go to the next slide, Sam? So kind of the agenda of today's meeting is earlier this week, we had a legislative meeting with Senator Dembro and Representative McLean, and we're going to kind of give you an outbrief of what happened there. We're going to talk about Senate Bill 1522, which was the big one that had impact for JDEP and YCEP. House Bill 2124, menstrual products, has got some impact. We want to talk about ESSER 3 funds. You've all got ESSER 2 funds already that have been allocated, but we want to talk about ESSER 3 funds as well. There's more money coming there, and kind of brainstorm some ideas with everyone. Want to talk about SIA, Student Investment Act, and the application system and that kind of stuff. Perkins 5 and CTE, give you an update on what's going on there. And then whatever topics, and talk about future meetings. So next slide, Sam. So the legislative meeting, it was a Monday afternoon. There was a lot of folks there between JDEP, YCEP, legislature, COSA was there, if I remember. I think OSBA was there, the school board, lots of different people there. Biggest thing that came out of it is, everyone knows that JDEP and YCEP got $8 million worth of general funds for 21-23. The biggest thing that we really want to stress to everybody is that $8 million was not permanent, and it's going to be absolutely critical and crucial to get partner engagement as we work towards the funding levels for 23-25, because that's what a big part of this meeting was. Legislature is going to be looking for multiple reports from us. They want to know, how do we use the money? And then the transition services outcomes is going to be the big one too. That's coming out, because part of what was written in there is that we can use these funds to do transition work with the kids, and then also to let you know there's going to be future meetings scheduled. And I know some of you guys were invited to the one on Monday, but we're definitely going to keep pushing to make sure we get as much participation as we can from folks as we work on the engagement pieces and trying to really figure out what is the funding going to look like. Any questions from that? Okay.
And then Adam,
yeah.
I'm gonna share darn.
Oh, you're going to show the Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah. So what happened was, in preparation for the from the Monday meeting, the legislature asked us for some budget figures and FTE figures, which we sent and which they shared. And then many of you, if not all of you, provided FTE data. So that was the impetus for it. Like they asked us, we want to see the FTE, we want to see what the money was bought. So this was shared, and this was emailed out by the by the legislative committee person, to whoever attended the meeting. So if you don't have this spreadsheet, well, actually at the end of this meeting, we plan on sharing the PowerPoint, plan on sharing the PDFs of the bills, and plan on sharing this with everybody so that all of you have this. So you guys can see the Excel spreadsheet, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so forth, and then and then this is it. And so if anyone has any questions or comments, so this is where we're gonna pause, for so
Sam, I'm sorry, I don't think my numbers got kept when I put them in, and I guess I was treating it like a Google sheet, and they're not accurately reflecting what we have at school. So
well, the numbers that are there are actually what I got from Shannon. I talked to Shannon because I didn't get a hold of you. These are just preliminary. These can be changed, Greg. This isn't set in stone stuff.
Okay, good, because yeah, we've got five teachers and other
Well, I'm
folks.
going to tell you, the number of classrooms you're getting funded off of, though, is based on your ADM.
Oh, well, okay, that's
Okay.
a whole different story.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, got it. That's fine.
Yeah. Why don't you and I have a conversation later on, and we can work through this stuff a little bit more together. Okay.
Yep.
Sounds
So,
great.
yep. So Greg, it's like ADM and your general fund, not Title 1D nor IDA. This is just, we're just asking for FTE based on funded by Oregon funds. If you have teachers funded by Title 1D or IDA, that is not, because what it is, and that's something that we're trying
Okay.
to communicate to everybody is, when we factor in IDA and Title 1D into our base funding, like our core funding, that becomes supplanting. Like, Title 1D and IDA is supposed to be supplemental. And
Yeah.
what we're trying to get at with the legislature is what's our core funding, base funding. And so that's why the ask was for funded by Oregon dollars.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense, because some of the other people are funded by ESSER and whatnot, so.
Exactly.
And I trust Shannon to give you accurate information totally, so. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Shannon and I had a couple conversations about this. So,
Great.
okay. Okay. If there's no questions, like Sam said, we're going to email this out to everybody after we're done with the meeting. So, let's go to the next slide, Sam.
Okay, Senate Bill 1522. I've emailed this out many times before, but of course we'll email this out again. Senate Bill 1522 is a large Senate bill, the education omnibus bill, so there was many sections. So one of the sections is on page 5 and 6. I mean, sections 5 and 6 that that really went beyond the current statute for and I had it, and when I made the screen larger so people could see, here it is. So here for YCEP and JDEP, the current diploma statute says, here it is, they have to accept credits, right? And so forth. It says YCEP and JDEP, but it strengthened it. And what the bill did was create a new definition of an education program in the state. And it is defined as, means provided by school district, charter school, youth corrections, detention, and also LTCT and hospitals. So now school districts have to accept, our credits. So, yep. So, and here's a point of discussion. So now that, they have to accept, community high schools have to accept credits in LTCT, YCEP. So here's a discussion. How will it impact JDEP, YCEP, LTCT hospitals? Like, for instance, it might be a situation where some community high schools may question what happens in the courses in one of our programs. Are they meeting the same standards? Do they have the same rigor? And so forth, because now it's going to be caught out. And we're anticipating a new, the revising of the OERs for diplomas. And then there'll have to be a publication or notice to all the school districts, because some school districts may not be aware of this change. So they're going to have to be aware of it. And then they may start, questioning the number of credits earned in the time period that the kids are in YCEP, JDEP, LTCT hospitals, and, the rigor and standards. So how do some of you guys think that it might impact you guys?
I'm going to jump in here real quick, Sam, and just the one thing I want to say is I would anticipate that we're gonna, I don't know how often it's happening now, but I would anticipate phone calls coming from public schools and stuff asking what is included in our courses and things like that, now that they're going to be forced to take these credits. So it's something to think about and prepare for, that if you get those questions as to, how do you answer those questions? Because quite honestly, if the questions come to Sam and I, we're going to have to shoot them back to the local sites, because, we aren't down in the weeds as to the courses that you're doing, and the rigor that you're putting into them and those kind of things. So
I'll jump in on my end. We in my 2 years, I haven't had any questions about the courses we're doing, because we're tied to Three Rivers and we follow those planned courses.
okay.
I did question when I first got here that we were, and it's been going on since I got here, was they got 2.5, they could earn 2.5 credits a quarter. So 10 a year. So that was a question for me. But when you look at our school calendar, we actually go about 10 more days a quarter than the Three Rivers School District each quarter. So that's where I justify where you can get a little more credit. And also the class sizes are 8 to 10. You're getting a lot more in-depth stuff with the teachers going on, at least in my school, and I would assume other schools too, in the YSEP program too, very similar. Because I'll be honest, I've questioned some, because I'll get a kid that comes here from another program. I'm like, how the hell did they get 8 credits last quarter? That's a lot.
Well,
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Far and few between, but
but I do think that we should question sometimes, because it does keep everyone on their toes too.
Yeah. And at Salem, we had a lot of pushback when I first got here, but I had set up meetings with Salem Kaiser School District, with Woodburn, with lots of our area schools, to explain exactly why they got the credit they did, why it was legitimate credit. So I really didn't have I haven't had any problems in a couple of years. And I did have a little meeting actually with Lord a couple of years ago, because we had a little pushback from them, but that issue has been resolved. But doing a lot of legwork ahead of time, meeting with the schools ahead of time, showing them what we do and why they earn it. So we haven't had problems in quite a while.
Dave, we had some situations where kids came with an unreasonable amount of credits, and we just made some phone calls and said, hey, can you explain this? And several times it turned up that they just had incorrectly written it in the transcript. So there were adjustments that were made. So that could possibly be what had happened too.
I'm going to jump in. Before I got here, I felt like it was kind of not a puppy mill, but a diploma mill. And so one of the first things I did was look at how much are we aligned with because I'm with our school district here, how much do we align with the alternative program being offered at our local high school? And we were not. So that was one of the first things I did, because I was worried about this. So I meet regularly with the high school to make sure that the 1 semester classes are getting the appropriate credit, because we use Apex because I don't have teachers for everything. So we are using the online program. And so, 1 year classes are earning their credit. If it's a teacher-led class, it's only this much credit, so that I align exactly with our school district. But that was one of the first things I saw when I came on last year as a new principal here. So if y'all ever see something come from my school, please call me. Please call me.
Thank you, Brandy. And here's this. And then I need to point this out, because like Adam and I, we discussed this yesterday. The statute specifically states a school district or charter school must accept credits earned in these programs. It doesn't say it doesn't say an ESD. It doesn't include ESDs. So that's something that they could, add in. So like theoretically an ESD doesn't have to, but of course ESDs will probably accept, credits from our programs, but it says a school district or a public charter school must accept credits earned by by students. So that's something that's minor, but we don't anticipate, ESDs not accepting credits, from our programs or from other schools. Yeah. Yeah, so that's so yeah, so that's something. Yep. Any other comments, thoughts? Okay, so next, the next we're gonna go for is next on now that was sections 5 and 6 of the of Senate Bill 1522, and sections 7, 8, 9 and 10 is specifically on YCEP JDEP. So and then so here, sorry, here it is, right? So here on section 7, we have a statute that said this is the purpose of YCEP and JDEP, and here's the statute 700. So now it revised Senate Bill 1522 revised this statute, of YCEP JDEP to the point where it says it is to provide an education that is nearly the same as practical, well, to receive an appropriate education that is nearly the same as practical as education received by students enrolled in common union high schools. And then next, it talks about, it adds section 7, states that, students that were enrolled or were previously enrolled, they're able to receive transition services into school settings and workforce preparation programs. So these are the two purposes. And sections 8 and 9 goes to the point where it says an appropriate education, it includes the definition of appropriate includes transition. So, so it's in two places where it says all of our sites need to work with our kids as they exit our JDEP and our YCEP programs into school settings or workforce preparation programs. And we'll expand on that later, because I know I had a conversation with another site and said, Sam, I'm going to be honest, we're not doing it, and then so forth. Yes. So that's why we all know it's good for YCEP. You guys have been doing it for quite a while, since ever, because 15 to 30% is required, for Title 1D. So we wanted to share this out. And of course, section 10 is the effective date. A lot of bills happen, their effective date is January 1st or whatever, but for the legislature put for section 10, it is effective for sections 7 through 9, July 1. And they specifically said apply to the 22-23 school year. That was very intentional of the legislature. Yeah. So transition services for JDEP, and then the purpose of YCEP and JDEP, is there. Yep. Yep. Before I go on to the next slide, any thoughts or comments or things that for points of clarification?
So quick question. So am I understanding this Senate bill is actually going to force the state to provide more money to align with other schools like credit? I mean, the way I read that, what you just said was that for us to look mirror or somewhat close to union schools, they're gonna have to fork money out to make sure like the smaller sites have teachers to introduce this and not just put them on Odyssey because that's not what's practiced best in the regular schools. It's in a small portion, and it's a piece of it for alternative setting, but it's not always the case. So, I mean, that's kind of what I see. Am I reading that wrong? Are they setting themselves up to make sure we have money?
Well, David, those would be some great comments to come up at future legislative meetings when we're talking about budgets, because at this point, I mean, there's nothing set in stone as to how this is going to be funded with any kind of new money. And Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, at this point, starting July 1, you can use the money that you get, general fund, state school funds, to do transition services. We did not have that in law prior to this happening. But David, the question you're asking is there additional money to do this? And on top of the general funds that we've received for this year, right now, there's nothing that is permanent going forward.
Right.
A point of clarification. We've always had the ability to provide transition services while the kids were inside the walls. Once they left, then our ability to use JDEP and YCEP funds to support the kids ended. But then now, because the new law says recently enrolled, we've always had the ability to provide transition services when the kids are, before they exited. But Senate Bill 1522 now gives us the ability to go forward, to support the kids after they leave. And then to David's point, I think, if I may, David, I think what you're paraphrasing. Look, guys, the legislature has now changed our purpose, has increased it, has made our courses have to be equal to, because they're going to start receiving our credits. So then now, with this additional new requirements, there should be additional funding that comes with it. Am I on the same page with you, David?
Yeah, spot on. I don't know how we can meet the needs, especially for I'll be honest, like me and McLaren, we're probably pretty good. I'll be honest. I mean, just from what I see, if we stay status quo, but some of the smaller sites and the middle ones, they start to get hit. They can't provide those services and match what they're doing, like up in Tillamook High School and all that stuff. That's unreasonable, and it's not gonna happen if they don't figure out how to fund better. That's what it looks like to me, is that someone's pushing for it in the legislative, and it's gonna force them to give us more money one way or another. But that's just my inclinations. The other thing about transition, I'll be honest, we've been doing transition here, but when you talk about services after the fact, 90% of our kids go to a step down program or to camp. So, it's not like if they were going out to the community around us, makes more sense for us to be able to support that. And we will have some, but for the most part, most of our kids go to a camp. And so, that's where it's going to struggle with some of the bigger sites where they do step down programs. So just FYI.
Or the camp, Riverbend, Young Women's Transition Program, Camp Florence, Camp Tillamook, they will have, because when
Right.
they will, and in all honesty, David, too, a lot of the kids actually end up in LTCT. Hawaii has tremendous amount of beds at Homestead, St. Mary's, Cordero House, and so forth. So, yeah, but then it's going to be a huge lift for JDEP, because it's new. They didn't have access to Subpart 1, Title 1D funds, and like JDEP, they average about like 90 kids ADM, but the number of kids that cycle in and out is like in 3,000. YCEP averages about like 300. Yeah, it always happens, right when I'm doing a webinar, people call. Sorry. Yeah, so yeah, it's gonna be like that. Yeah. So YCEP is like 300, like roughly 13,000, 1,300 kids come in and out of YCEP, yeah. So, yeah. So, if there's no other questions, because I'm keeping track of time, so I'm gonna go on. Is that okay, everybody? Okay. Yeah. Mr. English said, go for it. Okay. So, so next, transition to school settings and workforce preparation programs. Oh, and Adam forgot to do this.
Yeah, we need your help. I do not like that acronym. That's like saying the alphabet. Help us come up with a better, shorter, easier acronym. By the way, everybody, Sam tried to add 3 more letters to that acronym this morning, and I just put the kibosh to it.
And the 3 letters I was going to put in were ongoing, because what it is, because it says, because into school settings, workforce preparation, and look at the second part, any ongoing support for transition.
Yeah. So put that in the back of your brain and think of a better acronym that we can use. That's way too long.
Oh, wow. Christine said, that's a good one. Next steps. Yeah, we could call it next steps.
That is good.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you, Christine. Yep. Yeah. Here we go again. Okay. So, because we know some of our sites will be new, especially for JDEP, and because we wanted also to bring in national experts, and partly we knew that a center could assist us, partly for some of the things for free and some of the things that we would have to pay for. So we're hoping to enter into a written agreement with financial things tied to it with the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition. They are run by the University of Oregon and the University of North Carolina. I think not Chapel Hill, but the Charlotte or something, one of those, So then, the tentative plan, they're gonna do a survey, they're gonna do outreach, from our partners that are currently doing transition and then they've worked actually with Lane County, even Helensview in the past, and I think even in Bend and so forth. So they're gonna do a survey outreach to see what's going on, kind of like a needs assessment, and then hopefully from July through February, we'll have 3 or 4, maximum up to 4 sites that will work with them for really high level technical assistance, and to get the transition services ramped up. And hopefully they will have an evaluation and report by February for us. And that's where we're gonna have to pay them, to inform the legislature on our progress, to show like, this is what we did with the money. Please give us more money, from later, for the future. Yeah. And then of course, we're probably gonna have to collect data, the type of data and so forth. And they asked us not to, well, I think they asked one thing we could share, one thing we can't share is here. They've created a proposal for us. We can share this, for review and so forth. We can share this, but what they didn't, what they asked was we not share the draft survey yet, but we can share, like, if 2 or 3 people want to review the draft survey, like what they're asking for, and to provide feedback and so forth. So if there's any volunteers that would want to review their survey, their data collection tool, please email myself or Adam, and we'll send this to you. But we can share this, our the plan that they have put together. Yep. Any thoughts, comments? And we wanted, our transition toolkit or transition services to be based on research, best practices across the nation. And yeah, and I know some of you guys are doing a lot of great things and so forth. So that's our current plan. Any thoughts, comments? And they used to work with Marion County too. And through the work with Marion County started to fund school advocate positions and so forth. Yeah, that's what they mentioned too. Any thoughts, comments, suggestions? One question I thought was going to come is like, Sam, how much is it going to be? Where is it going to come from? And I was going to say, it's all going to come out of Christine Otto's budget. Just kidding. just kidding, Christine. Actually, it's going to come out from our cash balance, like when we have, we have unspent funds and so forth. Yeah, and it's not going to cost that much because of the fact that we've communicated the threshold. Once we pass the threshold, then DOJ has to review it. It takes time, has to go off, for all that kind of stuff. So we are, it's not on purpose that, we're trying to be within that threshold. Yep. Any other thoughts or comments? People are like, I thought people would be more, yeah, they have more thoughts or comments about transition. Yeah. Like Toby at Klamath, they're one JDEP site that the school district does provide Title 1D subpart 2 funds directly to the JDEP site, and with those funds, they were able to hire a part-time transition coordinator, Ron McNamara, who has retired. So, Toby, did you guys fill that position? How are you guys supporting transition from Klamath?
Yeah, Sam, we did replace Ron with Natalie Carpenter, and she's doing a really good job. She's currently a 6-hour person that's helping. She's actually kind of a parapro in the room, helping our small Klamath site. And then with your funds and your approval, I was able to add a 0.25 for specifically for transition, some of this work. So next year, beginning July, she will actually be an 8-hour person. And so those additional 2 hours will be specifically dedicated to this follow-up and transition that you're talking about. So I'm kind of excited to learn more and what the follow-up is going to be and those kind of things, so we can line out her what that's going to look like for her. But she has some really good ideas, and she's real creative, and I think we could do a good job with those additional 2 hours each day.
Thank you, Toby, for that feedback. And then this is what another JDEP site said. They said, Sam, finally now, besides that one teacher, we could have a full-time, another person, because they had a half-time. You know, now with the additional, general fund, they were actually able to, instead of saying half-time here and a half-time to another program, they could finally have enough funding to make that half-time person full-time, dedicated directly to JDEP. They could be the registrar, transition person, and so that's where I think we need to communicate to the legislature too, that's efficiency there too, and so forth. So thank you, Toby, for bringing that point up. Any other thoughts? And Gretchen in the chat said they're really excited to have the service in both YCEP, JDEP. We're all too. Yeah. But like I said, I know some of our JDEP sites, this will be brand new. It's going to be a ramp up. So that's why we're trying to come up with, supports and so forth. Any other thoughts or comments before I go on? Or we go on? I remember, like, as Adam said, like today, it's not where we're speaking to you or talking. It's an opportunity to help us move forward and to say, give us an opportunity, tell us what you want, what you don't want, and so forth, right? It's, we're seeking your feedback, and some of you guys are giving us great suggestions and bringing up good points. Okay. If not, the next one is within, again, Senate Bill 1522, the next one, Section 11, was the provision of menstrual products to students. I kid you not. After the 21 legislative session, the most emails or comments or calls I got was because of the menstrual products. Because part of it was, the definition of bathroom included males. So then, I got calls. We're all male facility. We still have to provide menstrual products in our bathrooms. The definition says including males, and so forth. And then the safety hazards and all that kind of stuff. So with everyone's feedback, and I think I know LBL ESD met with the legislature to hear some of the concerns with COSA and OSBA. So here, Senate Bill 1522 says, if, I'll let you read it. If an educational program doesn't have control over their student bathrooms, then you're kind of exempt from this section. Yeah. Yeah. So, so that's the thing that we try to work with. So like Children's Farm Home, it's run by Trillium, St. Mary's, Win Watts is run by Albertina Kerr, and YCEP, JDEP, Klamath, it's run by, the bathrooms are not controlled by the school districts or ESTs. It's by them. So then you guys are kind of exempt from having to provide these things. Adam, you want to speak to this?
I think you kind of covered it. Sam dealt a lot more with this issue than I did, so he's far more versed in it than I am.
Yep, there was some legislative meetings and so forth. Rightly so. And then, I have a daughter, and then, yeah, so, it's the dignity part, and so forth. Yep. Any thoughts or comments? So that's a relief, right? For some of you, like, you don't have to do that kind of stuff. Can you imagine? That kind of stuff. They could clog up the bathrooms, they could use it for self-harm and so forth. Yep. So those are some of the concerns that were brought up. Any thoughts or comments? Yep. And Brent, I know Brent is here. Brent, you missed out. Like, we shared this and earlier, and I don't know if you were here, and we shared like how the legislature, they sent out that spreadsheet. So it will be sent out, so this is where the finances came in. So the spreadsheet with the finances and FTE will be sent out and so forth. So next is House Bill 4124. This one I think I sent this out too, but it might have flew under your radar. So basically there's a couple of sections, but the main section.
Hey, Sam, before you move on, this is Annie, and I put something in the chat about the sanitary products in bathrooms. We run into a glitch in that our student bathrooms are in their private rooms, and we still have not found a way to dispense sanitary napkins and tampons in a way that is safe and secure. So any input or advice from other programs would be really great. Right now, we have everything available, but it's at our control desk.
Yep.
Not in the student bathrooms.
Yep. So then now, Annie, for Sorbu, yes. Remember when I visited you? I think, was it March?
Yeah, but we still don't have a solution though.
Yeah. No. So then now with this, you don't have to provide it. It's up to the county. Yeah.
Right. But the county still has to provide it, but it still has to be in the bathrooms, correct?
That was one of the things that was brought up in the discussions, because what some of the sites are doing is they said that we'll have it in a centralized location, or the teachers would have it, or the kids could go ask for it. And then some of the advocates said that is wrong too, because some people will be embarrassed, to go up, and then they don't want the kids to be walking out of the classroom with a small bag. People will notice it. So that was something like we didn't want, where we didn't want to embarrass a student where they would, and especially if the teacher was a male, you know what I mean, right? Like having, so that kind of stuff. So there is a toolkit, and then the person to talk to would be Sasha Grinner. This is her bill, and then I can forward you her contact information. And then what would be good, Annie, would be if you could, when a unit or room is vacant, take a picture and show how the toilet is right adjacent to the bed. And then that way she has a true understanding of it. Yeah, because I know we did discuss this in February when I visited you. It was February. The months fly so fast now.
I don't remember, Sam. It could have been last week or 6 months ago at this point. But okay. We don't have a solution to this yet, except at the control desk. So I just want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can do to be in compliance with it, and be as respectful of the dignity of all of our students, and still be in compliance with the statute.
Yep. So you see the point where we didn't want that, like we didn't like having the kids ask for the products, from a male person. It could be little. Yeah. So that's the thing. Okay, so the next bill. So the first part is ODE has to conduct a survey of all academic assessments and all that kind of stuff. But it says JDEP YCEP LTCT hospitals are exempt, so we don't have to do that. So that's section 1. But section 3 is something that is an issue dear to our hearts and dear to your registrars. ODE has to identify, here it is, review and identify barriers for transfer of student records. Yeah. And the bill specifically calls out substitute care and detention facilities. It doesn't say LTCT, doesn't say YCEP, but specifically calls out substitute care and detention facilities. And perhaps because the bill says the law says 5 days, not 10 days. You know, for substitute care, detention is 5 days. And for the fact that these are short term, and the definition of substitute care and oh shoot, that's what happened. It was here, substitute subs. Oh God. Anyway, so it talks about, like, it says foster care and so forth. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because I was dealing with another person that called earlier about duty to send kids to school. It was like, oh, they said no, they have to send the kids to school. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So foster homes, group homes, and so forth. That's the definition of you know, substitute care. And of course, detention is 419A. Yep. 419A.004. Yep. That is the definition. Yep. So so here, then the department, after identifying all the things, have to come up with a report to the legislature by September 15, 2023, you know, and so forth. So of course, we know it's such a struggle to attain records from the previous school and sending records and so forth. So, yep. So we're gonna try to get include the input, well, substitute care and detention facilities, because it's part of the, they will be informing the report, you know, your feedback. But of course, we're going to try to include LTCT, hospitals, and YCEP. Any thoughts, comments? And I bet if we shared this with your registrars, they did have a lot to say about this, right? Any thoughts, questions on how, suggestions on how to proceed? And I was trying to get Adam to be the point person on this, but no way. It goes beyond us. Right, Adam?
That is correct.
I was saying, no. Yeah. Any thoughts or questions on, you know, the attaining records and sending records? Yep. So it seems like there's going to be some things that are cleaned up, you know. If not, then we're gonna go on to next SR3.
ESSER 3 funds. I can't speak for JDEP, but I can speak for YCEP. And we have very few YCEP sites that have been spending their ESSER 2 funds so far. There's a lot of dollars out there yet. And I don't know when the ESSER 3 fund allocation is going to happen. Sam, how long ago did we send this stuff out? How long ago were those meetings? 6 months ago when we were talking about ESSER 3 funds and the $90,000 per school district?
I think it happened, the engagement session happened in December. And that was a statewide. And then we had JDEP specific wide and so forth.
3-4 months ago, we started talking and it was determined that there's going to be $90,000 per site for ESSER 3 funds. One thing that's been posed to Sam and I, because across the board, the ESSER 2 funds are not being spent quickly. And so the question that was posed to us by other people at ODE is, have a conversation with sites and, you know, do we need to reconsider this money? And are there statewide projects that, you know, if we pooled the money, could we do some things that would be beneficial to the programs? One thing that came up, and I don't remember if I brought it up, Sam brought it up, or who brought it up, but one thing, and we've talked about this in the past, is about paying for an online education curriculum program. And this could be a way to pay for it. You know, so we kind of want to open up the conversation here as to, first of all, are sites open to having conversations about maybe pooling this money to do something for the greater good of the program? Or, you know, do sites think you can spend it? Because keep in mind, there's also a time frame on spending this money. So
Adam, what is the time frame on it? This is Joy.
I think the money's got to be spent by is it September of 23, maybe September of 24. I know ESSER 2 is September of 23. I think ESSER 3 is September of 24. Sam, do you know right off the top of your head?
We'll look it up and send
I
it
think
in the
that's
email.
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I know ESSER 2 is September of 23. That money has to be spent. And I think this, because most federal money all has the end date is always the end of September of a year. Because that's,
So-
yeah.
I can speak for us. This is Gretchen Bruner from the Willamette ESD. I mean, we have places and where we want to spend everything. We just have some internal things that we're figuring out to be able to spend it. And so once we have that, it's all earmarked and ready. We just need to get past that piece.
Okay.
And so I don't know that we wouldn't be interested depending on what it was, because I know that, you know, we've looked at a couple of different credit recovery type pieces. There's one that actually, you know, that we just can't stand up for some of our smaller programs, right? That has Oregon certified teachers. I mean, there's all kinds of great things. One, we can't stand that up. And then two, as an ESD, we would have to background check each of the teachers in it and like hire them as ourselves. So there's some, you know, there's some structural funkiness to using that particular group, but there's some really great options for that for some of our students, particularly at our JDEP site, right? So I don't know that we would be opposed to that either in some instances. So I think it's a maybe, right? Depending on what others are interested in pooling for.
I mean, if people are open to it, what I almost think our best plan of attack would be is to, in the near future, schedule a time to have all of us come together where the whole focus of the meeting is ESSER 3 funds, and start brainstorming what are the different things that sites are already thinking that they could use them for, and see is, and I don't know what the possibility is of, can we take some of the money and do like a statewide project and give some of the money to every individual site? I don't know what the rules are behind all that stuff. But if people are open to it, I would love to have some more conversations with this to see if, yeah.
Just for clarification, that $90,000 per school district / ESD or site. So what does that mean? For example, for like my 4 sites, is that the 90,000 is shared with mine plus Christine's too? And for Gretchen's, is it McLaren and Marion County for 90,000 total, or is it 180?
Yes. So for instance, for WSD, it's 90,000 for Marion, it's 90,000 for McLaren. And I believe for JDEP and YCEP, each site gets 90,000, but then for LTCT, if you have multiple LTCT sites, it's 90,000 for all of your LTCT sites. I think it's 90,000 for all of you. For instance, for hospitals, I think it's 90,000 for MESD, and it's 90,000 for Lane, 90,000 for
Yeah, I
WSD.
think it's 90,000 per site. So like you, Joy,
Yeah.
you're talking $360,000 for your 4 sites.
So that's super hard for us, because it's really super hard sometimes to spend $90,000 at our JDEP site versus our YCEP site.
Correct.
Yeah, you kind of have to look at things that are sustainable. So one thought for me that I just could throw out there, just as a random throw out, is a heavy equipment operations trailer that we actually own as an ODE contract in general that could maybe share space. Heavy equipment. Greg, I know you've done it at Tillamook.
And the certifications across.
It's you get certified on a level 1 certification. You can get certified on a level each. Yeah, it's progressive. So if we have a student that's there longer, they could get each additional certification. Right now we've been working with Baker Technical. Each rotation for 2 weeks is $13,000. So this would take, if we had, it would pencil out at 20 rotations. So after we shared it 20 times, and I do about 9 every biennium. So I don't know. For my 360, that's what I'm kind of leaning towards that, because Gretchen, I hear what you're saying. It's hard to dump a bunch of money into one site when it's insular, not sustainable, possibly funding. So that's hard.
Right. Right. And then the other piece too is if we talk about something, if we pool and we talk about something like credit recovery, which totally would be great to have some of those extra resources and those things in specific courses.
Yeah.
How do we sustain that when the cliff drops, right?
And that's also a really sticky wicket because we have multiple unions to involve, and a lot of us have already paid out our software programs for 2 or 3 years in advance. So, we're penciled out already. So we purchased our curriculums that are already kind of contained. So yeah.
Right.
How exciting to have this as a problem. Thank you, Adam and Sam.
It is. And I know Brent made a comment in here. The allocations that we saw previously were much different. And so we were planning much differently in our budgeting. And so it'll be a different conversation going forward because I had people and things within our allocations. So it may look different for us.
And for example, I was at a school yesterday and they were approved to spend some of their ESSER in an outdoor school space. So that looked like maybe something that's kind of non-traditional. So that definitely thinking outside of the box is what we might have to explore or get to explore.
And just to give everyone a heads up, LTCT we're having our statewide meeting tomorrow. And this topic will also be brought up with LTCT. And then we have to think of, well, for Adam and I and some of you, we have to think of a system. The system is LTCT, YCEP, then, JDEP, LTCT, YCEP, then to LTCT. And sometimes kids from LTCT go back into YCEP or JDEP and so forth. So, and the early indications that I have from when I speak with some of our LTCT people is they feel that they could use their 90,000. Like having the pool of coming up with a giant is going to be some of them because LTCT is not as well funded this biennium as JDEP YCEP. LTCT, the day residential programs. Even though the cost per classroom went up tremendously because there's less classrooms, there's still they're still not as funded, way more than we're at now. So that's why.
Also remember, there are absolute strings tied to this money. You can't just spend this money on anything. I do not know the approved use of funds for it right off the top of my head, but that is one thing to keep in mind as well. And like Sam said, LTC is talking about this. Annie, I know you're on here. We're going to talk about this for hospitals as well. So this is a conversation Sam and I are having with all of our different partners. So
am I correct saying, Adam, that there's more guidelines, more strings this round for ESSER 3 than there have been? So ESSER 1 was a little less stringent.
I think so.
Was a little bit more, and ESSER 3 is even more so.
I think so. I don't know absolutely, but I do think that yes, there is a tighter reins on how it's being reported, and the use of it may stay the same. But if I do remember correctly from some of the meetings, that it's a lot tighter on how you have to report and keep track of the money. So,
and Gretchen, to the point where, and Adam, please correct me, like it was advised that our procurement unit wants to create a brand new ESSER agreement rather than revising the ESSER 2 agreement. Like how all the school districts and ESC signed ESSER 2 agreements for ESSER 2 funds. We said, oh, okay, we'll just add on the ESSER 3 and then add on the new requirements. And they said, no, it's going to be, that's too much of a, it's better to just create a brand new agreement for ESSER 3 because the requirements and components are so different. So that's why, like, oh, when we heard that, oh my gosh, that's just more things. Yeah. Okay, so I'm keeping track of time too. So If there's any other thoughts or comments about the ESSER funds. So what I'm hearing from everybody is you guys are open to it. Some JDEP sites might be not able to spend all their money, but definitely YCEP could probably spend all their money. Yeah, okay, but then,
How about if we do this? If everyone's open to it, how about if we set another meeting on this in a couple weeks? And just have some conversations. Again, nothing's being decided, nothing's been taken away from anybody at this point. But why don't we, because I do think we need to spend a little bit more time and just have some conversations about this. So Sam and I will take a look at the calendar and send out another invite. Now, let me ask the group this, because we could do a statewide thing for YCEP, but not for JDEP. Do you want to have another big group conversation, or would you rather have a conversation with the YCEP folks and a conversation with the JDEP folks? What's the feeling from the group?
So Adam, for clarification
Yeah,
on that question with regards to JDEP, could some JDEP sites opt in to doing a collaboration and others opt to just keep their money? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know.
Okay.
But what I guess the point that I'm getting to is I don't know what the state level will allow us to do between merging these funds, if it's got to be all or nothing. But I think if we spend some more time and really pencil out how each sites are feeling, what they're thinking about spending money on, then Sam and I can take that information back to the people above us and say, hey, here's the real feedback that we're getting from the sites. What are the options that we can do with this money? See, I don't know if the money is divvied out individually, if every site gets, and I think Brent's right. If I remember right, I want to say 90,000 was a minimum floor, and depending upon population, you got even more than that. But I do know we ran into an issue with another program that wanted to share some of the money outside of that program with a different program, and we were not able to cross boundaries between programs. So it's one of those deals that if you have a YCEP and a JDEP, you may not be able to share the money between those two programs either. So there's a lot of things that we don't know about this, but I think the more information we can get from you, the community partners, helps us to go forward with the people above us to say, hey, here's the engagement that we've done and what we've heard from the community folks. What are allowable uses? Does that make sense? So if everyone's okay with it, we'll schedule another meeting in the next couple of weeks and invite everyone to it and just have some conversations. And in the meantime, we can try to send out an email to the people dealing with ESSER 3 to see if we can get a little bit more clarification on how can the money float across programs and things like that. Okay.
Does ODE have some sort of an anticipated date for having this all worked out with ESSER 3? Because it seems like it's just dragging on and on.
I don't know that there's an anticipated date yet.
Okay.
And Annie, to be honest, it's not just us, it's also with regional low.
Oh, I know.
And it's also with EIECSC. And I had a conversation with a ESC superintendent, and they're for ESC, they're thinking of pulling their funding to fund, a statewide project. So we're all kind of tied.
Yeah.
Together.
Well, regional and JDEP are both my programs. And so I'm just like, come on, let's get it going here.
Right.
But just wondering if you had any inside information.
What is regional leaning towards?
Absolutely desperately needing it because we're so underfunded.
Okay, so similar to like LTCT then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because EIECSC has okay, yeah.
ECSC should be fine, but we are like desperate.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I know we're already past time, so I'll hustle through this stuff. Student Investment Act, SIA, majority of the folks have told us that they're going to be applying for it. we've got the hard application is due May 31st. There's no wiggle around that. It's got to be done ahead of time. I've had some YCEP sites already reach out to me that I've been able to help them as they've been collecting materials and things like that. If you've got questions, if you need help finding something, please reach out to Sam and I. You can reach out to the SIA folks as well. Let us help you, because I mean, what are we, 5-6 weeks away from when this application is due. So the other big thing that we want to really remind folks of is we understand everyone has to apply for this by themselves or in a consortium with the new folks this year. But remember, next biennium in 23, if you're like a New Bridge or a Trask, you can apply with your school district when the new cycle happens. So, which I have heard from some of the sites that's their intent to do that once the new cycle opens up. Questions about this?
And for 23, it's also not just the SIA, but high school success, formerly called Measure 98 and CTE. So that's the thing with the integrated guidance, they're trying to consolidate multiple funding streams and grant applications into a single application. Sorry to jump in.
Yep, no thanks, Sam.
Thoughts, comments?
So real quick question about the what do we call that? The in district where we give the district money to run the program. Is that going to be in addition, indirect? Is that going to be in addition to what we already give Three Rivers School District for people that are already tied to it? Does that make sense? I already give them 6% of my working budget because they handle HR and all that stuff. So in each application, are they going to get the other percentage that's built in?
Yeah, they get to, if you, the district ESD that you're working with, they get to take their indirect rate. I want to say SIA might have a maximum amount that they can take though.
Yeah, I was reading that. So, okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a 5% cap or something like that in grants.
Yeah.
Okay. Just food
But
for
yeah,
thought.
no, you got to pay them, Dave, to do your paperwork. So
I'm doing all the paperwork. What are you talking about?
yeah, you need their stamp. That's what it is. You're paying for their stamp. Anyway, okay. No other questions about that. Let's go to the next slide, Sam. We've had multiple meetings over the course of the last year about Perkins 5 CTE funding. We are getting very close. We're to the point of we need to get, we're going to have a meeting and have sites kind of decide. We're going to need a school district or a ESD to volunteer to be the fiscal agent for the whole thing. I believe what the plan is we're going to put the information out there, and sites that are interested in being the fiscal agent, there'll be an application process to apply to be it. And then a group of people at ODE will decide who will be ultimately the fiscal agent. And the fiscal agent, same here, David, the fiscal agent will be able to take an indirect rate. I think this one's got a cap on it too of like 5%. But so this is what's coming. This is for JDEP and YCEP. Again, program of study is not going to be required any longer. You still can have your program of studies, but previously you had to have a program of study to have access to any of this money. If I remember correctly, I want to say it's $150,000 roughly a year is what this money is. There's going to be more meetings about this going into the future as well with figuring out who's going to be the fiscal agent and that kind of stuff. There has been some conversations about, again, here, not necessarily looking for every site to take a cut and possibly putting together a program where people apply for using this money to start up new programs. Again, as I recall, this money is really just startup money. This is not money that you're going to get to try to keep a program alive for a decade. Is something to think about as well. But really, because JDEP hasn't had access to these funds and some of the YCEPs haven't had access to these funds either in the past, you're really trying to look at some new creative and inventive ways that we can get the money to other sites. So,
And it could also be professional development. In one of those, stakeholder sessions that we had, engagements, I think YCEP or JDEP sites, someone said PD, like, our CTE teachers need PD, in the trades or stuff like that. So it could be where, we could pull our resources together and so forth. So it doesn't have to be always equipment. It could be PD too and so forth, or certifications.
correct.
So Adam, I've been working with you on this too. So
Mhm.
basically what you're saying, we're not going to be a part of the Southern Oregon Consortium. We're going to be part of our own consortium.
Correct.
Okay.
But there are rules that, like, the regional folks still can and I want to say have to work with you if you reach out to them under different aspects. They just no longer get to control your money.
Okay.
Okay, and David, and this is a hang up that's still complicating things. The way that we understand it, equipment purchased through consortia funds belongs to consortia. It doesn't belong to Newbridge High School. So if you were to leave the consortia, they theoretically could yank that equipment out. Will they do it? Of course, probably not. But the possibility is there because it was purchased by consortia funds.
Well, okay, so here's my problem with that, and I've had this conversation with CT people at the state level, is that, hey, I know that we were given, the consortium for Newbridge through Three Rivers was given 37.5. We never saw 37.5 every year through the consortium. We saw about 5,000 a max, if that. And I never was a part of where that money went. So I think that's a bunch of bull, that they can reach stuff out. And I don't think they will, but I mean, that's a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
If they can come in and take stuff when we haven't even been getting all our money, other high schools in the district or in that consortium were getting the money. So that's where I would draw the line and have an argument about that.
Okay, Dave, one of the things though, to piggyback off what Sam just said, and this has not been clarified either, like your regional folks, if they're putting on training or something like that you send your folks to, that typically you haven't paid for in the past, now going forward, you may need to pay for it. Using these funds. One of the conversations I had with someone was, yeah, you didn't see your 37.5 every year, but some of those funds were paying for PD that your folks were getting and that kind of stuff. Wow. I got you, Dave, but you understand the philosophy.
I hear you.
You get it. So anyway, so that's we're trying to figure this all out, but the money, what we are anticipating is you will have more control and accessibility over these funds as an overall group.
And here's this for the CT Perkins, similar to now, not all JDEP and not all YCEP sites have to participate.
Correct.
You don't, not all of you have to put in an application or do it. It's like it'll be similar to SIA. It's like if you, and then it could be where some JDEP sites might say, based on our EDM it's not worth it, give it to like the larger sites or whatever long-term sites. So this is one of the programs where it's similar to SIA. It's up to you, and so forth. Yeah. So yeah, and then when we do have our next statewide meeting, we could probably say for only those that are interested, come. If you're not interested in participating in Perkins 5, don't, we don't want to waste your time or whatnot. That's why we're trying to think of having future meetings for specific topics. Like today was a hodgepodge because we haven't met for a while and we had a lot of things to share, but then future meetings might be shorter or might be longer, but it'll just be for ESSER. It'll just be for Perkins. It'll just be, today it's kind of a hodgepodge. So that's what we're kind of looking forward to. And we have about 15 more minutes. Does anyone have any other thoughts or comments or general questions or anything?
You know when we'll get the ESSER allocations? Because I had figured based on the total that Lord would get quite a bit more than 90,000, but
I think it's
maybe
on the
not. Maybe it's
website, Brent.
changed.
Yep. Brent, it's still posted on the website, but whether ODE and the governor's office decides to go to a different route, I don't know. As Adam said, we don't know when that decision will be made. And Brent, that decision is made way beyond,
Yeah.
it's even beyond like Tenio, Weatherall's, head, it's like, and I'm pretty sure they're going to ask superintendents, because it's not just JDEP YCEP, it's ECSE, it's the regional low incidence. It involves the state set aside. So yeah, and involves LTCT, it involves hospitals. So this is where an opportunity where we get feedback from everybody, to inform the decision makers on the path forward. The
Yeah, we
timing
saw a
can't
thing that
promise.
had all the school districts and then it had just a total for hospital, JDEP, YCEP, LCTC, all those grand total. So we were doing our budgets. We were trying to figure out how much we'd get out of the total.
Yep. I can try to search for it now as Adam answers other questions and comments.
Yeah, and remember the ESSER 3, like Sam just said, it's actually coming out of the state set aside. It is handled very differently than what all the school districts are getting. And so there's people far above our heads that are making the final decision. So what other questions? That's the last main topic slide that we had. Are there other questions that you've formulated, things you want to know? Okay. Sam, you're sharing your screen. Did you find it?
I forgot I was sharing my screen. Sorry.
Yeah, you're still sharing your screen, Sam.
Yeah.
So be careful what you post up there.
Yeah. Okay, so here, yep, here it is. Yep. So any other comments or thoughts? So do you guys like how the flow of today's meeting went? Kind of okay? Yeah. And then for LTCT, and we're thinking for perhaps JDEP 2 and YCEP, rotate the meetings. Like LTCT already for the fall, I already secured a September or October meeting location. So maybe like Adam will probably schedule YCEP meetings at facilities so you guys can go out for those that can. And for JDEP, maybe, yep, and so forth. So
I think David Regal's going to host the very first YCEP because he's looking for some love. Everyone's going to go down there and give him a hug.
I was thinking we were going to use Easter money and go to Vegas.
I'll have to check and see if that's an allowable use there, David.
I used to live there, and I'll bet I could find us some PD to go along with that down in Vegas. That's teamwork.
Okay. Well, if no one else has anything, I just want to say thanks to everyone that came on out and participated, and the discussions and the comments were fabulous. We're really appreciative of the time that you gave us today. Yeah, this was a hodgepodge, but we had a lot of stuff that came through the legislature and stuff that we thought you really needed some quick updates on. Some of the real big heavy stuff though that is still coming is the conversations to figure out how to finalize the funding of JDEP and YCEP. And that'll be one of the hot tickets moving forward for the foreseeable future. So yeah, keep an eye out. If you're invited to one of those legislative meetings, please try to attend if you can, and give voice when you have an option to, because that's certainly going to help us as we try to craft what adequate funding is for these two programs. Okay, I think everyone gets 10 minutes back